My daddy is in heaven. Can you help us get home? Said a little boy to the lonely CEO, millionaire at the airport. Rain poured steadily over the airport drop-off lane, soaking the concrete in sheets of reflected light. Taxi tail lights blurred into red streaks. A loudspeaker echoed flight delays. The metal benches along the pickup zone glistened with rain. Most were empty. A few travelers stood under awnings, scrolling phones or pacing. Gabriel sat alone on the far bench, coat collar raised against the cold, a leather briefcase at his feet, and a small gift bag tucked beneath his arm. The rain spotted his tailored suit, but he did not move. Droplets slid silently across the glass face of his Rolex. He had just come from a global finance conference, keynote speaker, press coverage, champagne toasts. It had gone well. Another success in a long line of them. And yet staring into the rain, he felt nothing. No one had waited for him at arrivals. No calls, no welcome home. The driver was late. But that wasn't what made the air feel heavy. Rain always did this. It reminded him of something he had buried. A night long ago when his younger brother Lucas cried in the rain the night their parents left and never came back. He let out a slow breath and glanced up, trying to clear the tightness in his chest. Inside the terminal, a small boy sat by the window, forehead pressed to the glass. His name was Finn, 6 years old. He wore a raincoat with a tear near the zipper and held a fraying stuffed bear named Mr. Buttons. His gaze was still watchful, not the restless kind typical of boys his age. Finn's mom worked the night shift cleaning the terminal. He had been told to wait quietly until she finished her last hallway, and he always did. He knew she was tired. Sometimes she coughed late at night when she thought he was asleep. Tonight, the rain was too heavy for the bus. A few days ago, a classmate had told Finn, "You don't have a dad. That's why no one picks you up." Finn had not replied, but the word stayed. Now he watched the rain fall harder and saw a man alone outside, well-dressed, composed. The kind of man who looked like he might have a big car. The kind of man who might take someone home. Finn stood up, adjusted his hood, hugged Mr. Buttons tight, and stepped outside. Rain hit him at once, soaking through thin shoes. He didn't stop. He walked straight toward the bench. Gabriel looked down, surprised. A boy stood in front of him, soaked to the bone, but calm, wide eyes, steady voice. "My daddy is in heaven. Can you help us get home?" Gabriel froze. The words landed like thunder. He blinked. No one had asked him for help in a long time. No one had looked at him like that with trust. Before he could answer, a woman's voice cut through the rain. "Finn." A blonde woman ran toward them, coat clinging to her skin, hair damp around her face. She knelt beside Finn, pulling him close. One hand held a cleaning rag. Her fingers shook. "I'm so sorry," she said breathlessly, glancing at Gabriel. "He didn't mean to bother you. He's just trying to be polite." Gabriel studied her. Her eyes were pale blue, tired, but clear. There was no fear in her posture, just apology and dignity. She didn't explain, didn't beg. She simply wiped rain from Finn's face and prepared to leave. Gabriel stood. "It's okay," he said softly. "I have room in the car. Let me give you a ride." The woman, Haley, froze. Finn looked up at her, then back at Gabriel. "I told you he's one of the good ones," he whispered with a small grin. Haley didn't reply at first, but her expression shifted. She nodded once. They walked toward the car. Finn skipped slightly, still holding Mr. Buttons. He wasn't smiling because of the ride. He was smiling because in his small way he had helped his mom. Gabriel followed a few steps behind, something tightening in his chest. Had he just cared about someone? He wasn't sure. But for the first time in a very long while, he did not mind the rain. Rain slid down the windows as Gabriel guided the sleek black car away from the airport curb. The windshield wipers moved in rhythmic sweeps, cutting through the storm. In the back seat, Finn sat snug between his damp backpack and a seat belt that barely fit across his raincoat. He hummed to himself while hugging Mr. Buttons. Utterly unfazed by the stranger at the wheel, Haley sat beside Gabriel in the front seat, still catching her breath. Her blonde hair, now drying in soft waves, clung to the shoulders of her worn coat. She kept glancing toward Finn, then back out the window, hands clasped tightly in her lap. You really didn't have to do this, she said quietly. We would have managed. Gabriel didn't look over. He just nodded once. I know. The car was warm and dry, filled with the faint scent of leather and something clean, expensive, like cedar or bergamot. It felt like another world compared to the echoing halls of the airport or the dingy break room Haley had just left behind. In the silence that followed, Finn's voice piped up from the back seat. Mr. Gabriel, do you have kids? Gabriel's hands tightened briefly on the wheel. No, he said, his tone even but distant. Finn accepted the answer without pressing. He leaned forward a little, eyes curious. Then why do you look sad sometimes? My teacher says people who are sad don't always cry. Haley turned around. Finn, she murmured a quiet warning. But Gabriel let out a breath, almost like a laugh. Your teacher's right, he said. The rest of the ride was quieter. Finn eventually curled up with Mr. Buttons, watching rain race down the window like it was a game. Haley kept her eyes on the buildings passing by, her fingers brushing a tear in her coat she had been meaning to sew for weeks, when they pulled up in front of a narrow 3-story building with faded bricks and crooked gutters. Haley exhaled almost in relief. A single porch light buzzed dimly above the entrance. This is us, she said softly. Gabriel looked at the building. It wasn't run down exactly, but it had the kind of wear that came from being held together with care instead of money. Thank you, Haley added, already unbuckling her seatbelt. For the ride, I mean it. Gabriel reached toward the glove box, hesitated, then opened the center console instead. He pulled out a neatly wrapped umbrella, new and unused, still with its store tag on. He held it out to her. Your umbrella's broken, he said simply. Take this, Haley blinked. For a second, she didn't move. Her gaze flicked from his hand to the umbrella, then back to his face. I can't. You can, he interrupted gently. It's just an umbrella. But it was more than that. It was the way he said it. Like someone who didn't often offer things that mattered, but meant it when he did. Haley took the umbrella slowly, her fingers brushing his. It was warm from the heat inside the car. She stared at it for a moment, unsure why it made her chest tighten. Thank you, she said again, and this time it sounded different. Gabriel gave a small nod, then turned his eyes back toward the windshield. She opened the door and Finn scrambled out behind her, splashing into a puddle with a laugh. He turned to wave. Bye, Mr. Gabriel. You drive really smooth. Gabriel watched them walk up the short path to the door. Haley paused at the top of the steps, the new umbrella now open above her. It was large enough to cover them both. She looked back once. He was still there, not rushing away, not on a phone call, just waiting. Haley gave him a faint, tired smile, grateful, unsure, but real. Gabriel nodded once more. Then he pulled away from a curb, the soft growl of the engine swallowed by rain. As he turned the corner, he glanced at the empty passenger seat. For a man who had spent years surrounded by people but never really seen something tonight had shifted. A boy's innocent question, a woman's quiet strength, and an umbrella passed from one life to another like a whispered promise that maybe not all connections are temporary. The apartment was quiet, lit only by the late afternoon sun slipping through the blinds. Finn napped on the couch, Mr. Buttons clutched tight to his chest, one sock slipping off. Haley moved through the living room, sorting a cluttered corner she had avoided for weeks. A dented plastic bin sat beside her, filled with old receipts, baby clothes, and forgotten papers. She smiled faintly at a hand-drawn card from Finn, stick figures, and a crooked heart labeled Mom. Beneath the blankets, her fingers brushed something firmer. A photo. She paused. It was faded, slightly curled. In it, Haley sat on a bench outside the women's center, visibly pregnant. Beside her stood a young man in a gray hoodie, smiling gently. On her lap, a tiny bear, still in Finn's room drawer. Lucas. She hadn't thought of him in years. But now memories returned. Lucas Vance had been a volunteer at the shelter where she stayed during her 3rd trimester. He was kind without pretense. He brought snacks to group classes, never asked personal questions, and once lent her a book, Things That Last, saying only for the quiet nights. He listened when others didn't. Stayed late to fix a broken heater during a storm. On her last day, when she moved into her first apartment, he gave her a smile that looked both proud and sad. She turned the photo over. Faded handwriting. Winter 2017. H plus L plus hope. Her heart tightened. Lucas. And then it clicked. Gabriel. The way his eyes held something unspoken. His silence when family came up. The resemblance. She studied the photo again. Lucas's features. Gabriel's face. It was undeniable. That evening, heart racing, Haley stood outside a modern glass building. Gabriel opened the door himself, dressed simply in a dark sweater. He looked surprised. "I didn't mean to just show up," Haley said, brushing damp hair from her face. "Is everything okay?" he asked, stepping aside. "I found something," she said, stepping in. "I think you should see it." Inside, his apartment was modern, minimalist, clean lines, untouched books, leather chair by the window. She handed him the photo. Gabriel took it slowly. As his eyes fell on the image, he froze. His fingers curled slightly around the edges. Haley spoke gently. "Was Lucas your brother?" Silence. When he looked up, his eyes were unreadable. "I haven't seen this photo before," he said. That was after we stopped talking. Haley stepped closer. "He helped me a lot. He didn't share much, but I remember he looked sad sometimes, like he carried more than he let on." Gabriel exhaled. He did. The silence between them was full. Not awkward, just heavy grief. Guilt. The weight of things left unsaid. "I didn't know he volunteered," Gabriel added. "Not until it was too late." Haley touched the edge of a nearby table. "He gave me that book, Things That Last. Said it was for when things got too quiet. I still read it." Gabriel looked back at the photo. He wanted to help people. "I told him to be practical. Grow up." I pushed him away. But he never stopped believing in the good. Haley didn't try to soften it. She just stood beside him, shoulder close to his. "Maybe he believed you'd find your way to help," she said quietly. Even if it took some time, Gabriel didn't speak, but he no longer looked afraid of the memory in front of him. And this time, he wasn't facing it alone. The cleaning cart creaked as Haley pushed it down the long corridor of Terminal B. Her steps were slower than usual, shoulder stiff, face unreadable. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, and the echoes of rolling suitcases drifted through the space. But all she could hear was the voice from that morning. "You need to report to admin now." No explanation, no time, just a tight-faced supervisor and a printed notice. By the time she was in the office, sitting in the plastic chair across from two stone-faced managers, she knew something was wrong. A complaint, a formal accusation filed by another airport employee, someone she barely knew, claiming she had approached a high-value traveler for money, that she was aggressive and clearly fishing for sympathy. The traveler in question, the report stated, had been a man in a tailored suit seen offering her and her child a ride. The implication was clear. Haley had never felt so cold in her life. She had tried to explain that she never asked for money, that she was working her shift, that her son was the one who spoke to the man, and that it had ended with nothing more than a thank you and an umbrella. But the damage had been done. They told her she would be on temporary leave, pending review. "You understand," one of them said, voice laced with condescension. "We have to be careful with employee conduct around our premium guests." She nodded mutely, stood, and walked out with trembling hands and a fire burning in her chest. That night, she did not tell Finn. She sat at the kitchen table long after he fell asleep, staring at the folded umbrella Gabriel had given her. It leaned quietly in the corner, the tag still attached, as if it too was waiting for an explanation. Gabriel found out the next afternoon. Finn had called him from Haley's phone, his voice chipper at first, then unsure when Gabriel asked why he was not at school. "My mom's home today," she said. "It's a grown-up thing, but she's sad, and I think someone was mean to her." Gabriel's hand stilled on his desk. He did not ask questions. He did not ask Haley to explain. He had seen that look on her face before, the one she wore the night they first met in the rain. Resignation worn dignity. He opened his laptop. 20 minutes later, he was on the phone with his legal team. "I need someone to look into an incident at the airport," he said simply. "There's a ground staff employee being investigated over a false complaint." I want it handled quietly, cleanly, and I want a formal statement of apology by tomorrow. Sir, may I ask? You may not, Gabriel cut in, but his tone was even. Just do it. By the next morning, Haley received a call from the same supervisor who had suspended her. His tone was different now, hesitant, even nervous. Haley, we owe you an apology. The complaint against you is unfounded. After further review, it appears the witness falsified the report. That individual has been removed from duty. We regret the inconvenience this has caused you. She hung up in stunned silence. When she opened the front door, Gabriel was standing there. He was dressed casually today. No suit, just a charcoal sweater and jeans, but his presence still felt centered, like he carried weight without asking for attention. Haley blinked. You did something. Gabriel gave a small smile. Not really. She folded her arms, searching his face. Why would you do that for me? He hesitated just for a breath. Then quietly, because no one stood up for my brother when they should have. The words lingered between them, more than an answer, an echo of something deeper. Not pity, not obligation, a choice. Haley's gaze softened. She stepped aside, holding the door. Come in, she said. I made tea, and this time he did. The hum of the terminal was familiar. The polished floors, the blinking gate monitors, the soft mechanical whir of escalators. It was a world Haley had grown used to, one she cleaned every night until it sparkled. But today it felt foreign, too big, too loud, because Finn was gone. It had only taken seconds. Haley had turned to speak with a supervisor about changing her shift schedule. She had looked down, and the spot beside her was empty. No little blue hoodie, no tiny sneakers, no Mr. Buttons, the ragged bear that usually trailed him like a shadow. At first, she thought he might have wandered to the vending machine, or maybe followed another janitor he recognized. But as the minutes ticked by, dread began to rise in her throat like fire. She started calling his name. When Gabriel received the call from Haley, her voice was already shaking. Finn's missing. He was just here. He saw someone handing out balloons. I think he followed them. I've checked everywhere near my station, but she did not finish. Gabriel's heart stopped mid-beat. I'm coming, he said, already grabbing his coat. He met Haley at the terminal's employee lounge. Her face pale, eyes darting toward every moving shape in the crowd. He took charge instantly. I'll get security to pull camera feeds. He told her, you stay here in case he circles back. She nodded mutely, knuckles white around her phone. Within minutes, Gabriel stood beside a monitor watching black and white footage of Finn toddling after a balloon vendor. Just a boy in a red cap pushing a cart of helium shapes. Finn's small figure was easy to miss, head tilted up, captivated. He had exited through a side hallway, one that led to the far end of the terminal's glass viewing platform. Gabriel was already moving before the footage looped back. Finn sat alone on the floor in front of the wide glass wall, knees drawn to his chest. Mr. Buttons clutched tightly in one arm. His other hand held a crumpled balloon string. Outside the thick glass, a plane soared into the gray winter sky. Gabriel slowed as he approached. The hallway was quiet now, the echoes of the crowd distant. It felt like a different world, suspended in time. He crouched down beside Finn, not saying anything at first. Finn blinked up at him. No tears, just a small, solemn face trying to be brave. I'm not supposed to walk away, the boy whispered. Gabriel nodded. I know. I just wanted to see the sky, Finn added. To see if Daddy could see us from up there. The string slipped from his hand. Gabriel caught it, and something inside him cracked. He remembered standing in a hallway like this years ago. Only instead of a little boy, it was his younger brother, Lucas, being wheeled into an emergency room, unconscious. Gabriel had been stuck in traffic, missed the last moments, missed the goodbye. He had not made it in time. But now with this small boy looking up at him, waiting for a grown-up to come, he gently reached out, lifting Finn into his arms. I see you, Gabriel said quietly. And I think your dad does, too. Finn tucked his head into Gabriel's shoulder. Gabriel held him tighter than he intended. Chest tight, breath trembling. For the first time in years, the weight he carried didn't crush. It anchored. He was here. And that changed everything. Snow had fallen lightly all day, blanketing the city in a quiet hush that made the streets below look like a model town in a holiday window. Up on the rooftop of the Vance and Row corporate building, the world felt miles away, still peaceful, glowing in the soft orange hue of dusk. Gabriel adjusted the last string of lights around the tree. It was not the tallest tree, nor the most symmetrical, but there was something humble and alive about it, a little crooked, a little windblown, just right. He turned when he heard the elevator doors open behind him. Haley stepped out first, guiding Finn by the hand. She wore a simple cream knit dress under her coat, and her golden hair, usually tied back in practical buns or braids, was loose tonight, soft waves catching the wind. Her cheeks flushed pink from the cold, her eyes blinking at the rooftop lights. Gabriel had strung by hand. Finn's eyes widened the second he saw the tree. "Is this for us?" Gabriel smiled. "It is. I figured every Christmas tree deserves to be lit at least once by people who believe in second chances." Haley looked like she was trying to find the right words, but nothing came. Gabriel didn't press. He simply handed a small box of ornaments to Finn. "Think you can help me finish decorating?" Finn nodded enthusiastically and immediately got to work, hanging shiny baubles with careful hands, humming something under his breath, probably a song from school. Gabriel stole a glance at Haley. She had stepped toward the edge, looking out over the city. Lights twinkled far below them. There was something quiet in her stance, thoughtful, like she was giving herself permission to feel peace for the first time in a long while. He walked over, holding out a mug of hot chocolate. "I thought cocoa might help." She smiled, taking it with both hands, their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. "This is beautiful," she said after a moment. "I wanted to say thank you," Gabriel replied, "for the way you look at the world, and for raising a boy who doesn't wait for kindness. He makes it." Haley laughed softly, lowering her gaze. "I think he's teaching me most days." "Me, too," Gabriel murmured. Just then, Finn called out, "We're missing the top." Gabriel turned. "You're right." He reached into a box behind the tree and pulled out a silver star wrapped in tissue. He knelt beside Finn and placed it in the boy's hands. "Want to help me put it on?" Finn nodded and Gabriel lifted him up, steadying him as the boy stretched his arms high and placed the star right at the tip. When it was secure, Gabriel lowered him gently. Then he pulled out a small remote from his pocket. Ready to light it up, Finn grabbed his mother's hand. Gabriel took the other. All three stood together in front of the tree. Gabriel pressed the button. In an instant, the rooftop filled with golden light. The tree shimmered, casting a warm glow on their faces. No fireworks, no music, just the sound of wind, the soft hum of city far below, and three people who, without ever saying it, knew this moment mattered. Haley looked up at Gabriel, her eyes reflecting the lights. He looked back, his gaze steady, not searching for words. They did not need to say anything, not thank you, not stay, not I'm falling for you, but the warmth between their hands, the way Haley leaned a little closer into the crook of his arm, and the gentle smile on Gabriel's face as he looked down at her and Finn, that was more than enough for now. This was their Christmas. Just them. A rooftop, a crooked tree, and light that came from choosing to show up. It was late afternoon when Gabriel returned to his office. A day after the rooftop tree lighting. The city was still blanketed in post-Christmas stillness, roads quieter, inboxes lighter, but his mind was far from settled. As he stepped into his office, his assistant was waiting with a small cloth-bound notebook in hand. "Sir, I found this while clearing the old volunteer locker files," she said softly. "It belonged to Lucas." Gabriel froze. He hadn't seen anything written by his brother since the accident. Slowly, he reached out, took the notebook, and nodded in silent thanks. Once alone, Gabriel sat down at his desk, hands resting on the soft cover for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was unmistakably Lucas's messy, open, emotional, a mixture of journal entries and sketches, scattered thoughts. Some were about the airport volunteer work, others were fragments of stories. But tucked between 2 pages was a folded letter. It was unfinished. No address, no name, but the title at the top read to the girl with golden hair and a brave smile. Gabriel's chest tightened. He read, You probably won't remember me. You had so much going on back then, pregnant, scared, still being stronger than anyone I'd ever met. You smiled when you didn't have to. You laughed so your baby wouldn't feel fear in the womb. I wanted to tell you thank you for letting me feel useful. I was just a volunteer, just a kid trying to figure out what to do with his own mess. But you made me feel like I mattered. I don't know what kind of mother you'll become, but something tells me someone out there will look at you one day and realize they are less alone because of you. And maybe that will be enough to keep them here. Gabriel stopped reading. His hands trembled slightly as he closed the letter. Lucas had never sent it. Maybe he never meant to, but every word, every line had been written with care. And it wasn't just admiration. It was belief. His little brother had seen something in Haley long before Gabriel ever did. But this time, Gabriel didn't feel envy or regret. He felt peace because Lucas had been right. That night, Gabriel walked quietly into the small park near Haley's building. He had no reason to go, no plan, just a quiet pull inside him, asking him to be there. He spotted them near the swings. Finn was trying to climb up the monkey bars, determined but giggly. Haley stood nearby, cheering softly, her golden hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, cheeks flushed from the cold. He didn't call out. He just watched for a moment. Watched the way she moved, the way she laughed when Finn almost fell, the way her eyes followed her son with gentle watchfulness, the way Lucas must have seen her once long ago. When she noticed him, her smile widened, not surprised, just warm. "You came," she said simply, stepping toward him. Gabriel nodded, slipping his hands into his coat pockets. "I didn't want to be anywhere else," he replied. She looked at him for a long moment as if trying to read something in his face, but Gabriel didn't say anything about the letter. He didn't need to. Instead, he sat beside her on the bench quietly. They watched Finn climb and slide, fall, and laugh again. Then, with no grand gesture, Gabriel reached out and took her hand. Her fingers curled gently around his, and he realized this wasn't for Lucas. This was for him, for the man who had lost so much, for the boy inside him who still believed kindness could bring people back from the edge, for the chance to hold on to something, someone before it slipped away again. They sat in the fading light, their joined hands resting between them. No past regrets, just a present moment that finally felt right. The rain had returned. Not heavy like before, just a soft, misting drizzle that coated the city in a quiet sheen. The kind of rain that didn't chase people indoors, but made everything feel slower, softer, more thoughtful. Haley stepped out of the staff exit at the airport, shoulders slightly slumped after another long shift. Her coat was thin, and her sneakers had long lost their resistance to water, but she was used to discomfort. It was simply part of life. She pulled her hood tighter and started walking toward the bus, stopped the same way she did every evening. But then she stopped. There it was. That car, the black sedan, with windows fogged lightly from the inside, parked near the curb, not in the drop-off zone, not in a rush. Waiting. Haley blinked against the rain and took a hesitant step forward. Then the back door flew open and Finn tumbled out with his backpack hanging crookedly and his bare Mr. Buttons nearly falling from under his arm. "Mommy," he yelled, beaming. "He's picking us up today." Gabriel stepped out from the driver's side, calm and composed as always. But something was different. Softer in the eyes, lighter in the jaw. He held an umbrella above his head and walked toward her, meeting her halfway in the mist. "You did not have to," Haley began, heart thudding faster than it should have. But he interrupted gently. "I wanted to." She looked down at Finn, who was now hugging her waist and bouncing slightly in the cold. Gabriel's voice was lower this time, almost unsure. "I'm not borrowing anymore," he said, watching her carefully. "I'm staying if that's okay." The words hung there fragile, but strong. Haley felt something stir deep in her chest. Not shock, not even disbelief, just warmth. Quiet, anchoring warmth. She didn't reply immediately, just looked at him. Then down at Finn, then back at him again, and slowly she nodded. It was the kind of nod that meant more than a yes. Gabriel opened the passenger door for her. Finn was already in the back seat, legs swinging, humming some made-up tune. Haley climbed in beside him, brushing damp strands of blonde hair from her cheeks. As the door shut, the sound of rain became muffled. Inside it was warm calm. Finn leaned forward, his tiny hands grabbing one of Haley's and one of Gabriel's. "Let's go home," he said matter-of-factly, as if it had always been that simple. And for once it was. Gabriel glanced at Haley. She was looking out the window, blinking back something that wasn't rain. He reached over and took her hand properly, letting their fingers find a rhythm that fit. No rush, no script, just real. Outside, the rain continued to fall, soft and steady. Inside, a boy with a brave heart smiled between the two people he trusted most. They weren't perfect. They weren't planned, but they were going home together.